Well, hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So you catch me playing around in the garden. The reason I'm doing this is because we've got a power cut and there's not a lot else I can do, so I thought I'd nip into the garden and have a play with the camera. And it just so happens that we've got a variety of male fern growing in the garden, and I thought I'd have a go and do some exploratory work with the macro lens using a technique you've seen me do many times before, which is sort of poking the lens through the vegetation and photographing what lies beyond it. And I thought for this video I'd take a couple of shots, pick the best one and process it on the fly so you can see exactly what goes on as it happens, more or less. So this particular shot that I'm working on, as I say, just peeping through the fronds at the foreground, photographing through to the background here, you've got this middle fern just here that's helping bring a little bit more interest in, and I'm just using these to create a nice softening effect, and I'm getting some interesting variations, and I'm taking a number of them, a number of pictures, and I'm just going to choose the best one, but I'll show them in Lightroom in a second. But just so you know, it is my macro lens that I've got on. It's a 120mm macro. It's about the equivalent of a 100mm macro on full frame. I'm at 200 ISO because obviously I'm hand holding it. There's no image stabilization on this lens, so I've got to have shutter speeds that are at least 100th of a second to be able to hand hold it. I'm getting 1/60th of a second at f4, and I'm not dialing in any exposure compensation, and I've got the finger and thumb on the focusing ring just to tweak the focus here and there as I need to, but literally just discovering what I can and just taking pictures as and when I see something interesting. So I'll see you, sorry about that, Willow's just crept into the frame, come to see what I'm up to. So I'll see you at the computer in just a few minutes. So I'm back at the computer. I just wanted to show you what's just happened. On the side of my camera I've got space for two SD cards, not unusual, but what's happened this time is that when I opened the slot, one of the cards wasn't seated in properly. As luck would have it, I did have the second card in and it has written to that second card, but it allows you, this camera, to shut the door whilst the card isn't seated properly. I've never noticed that before, but I got away with it this time, and that's the main thing. So I'm downloading the pictures. In fact, they're in now. And I'll just have a look. How many have I done? I've taken 63 images. That's not unusual. What I generally do when I'm in a situation like that and I'm hand holding, I'll just keep firing away and looking at various compositions. And what I generally find is that out of all the session, there's usually two or three that I know that are going to be worthwhile looking at. What happens is that there's a lot of pictures taken in between that are sort of working towards a composition. I might see something through the back of the LCD and I'll move the camera around and just tweak it here and there, and I'll take a lot of shots at that tweaking process until I find something. Once I find that shot, what I'll do then is I'll play around with the exposure on the exposure dial just to see if it looks better lighter or darker. And then obviously moving backwards and forwards, the focus is on manual, just making sure that I've got sharp focus on something that's really important within the frame. Like I say, I've got a few shots that I like. Certainly not all 63 of those images are worth keeping, but there's a small selection that I'm going to look at now. So now that I've got them on the computer, let's open Lightroom and have a look. So here is the collection of images. Interestingly, I've got 55, not 63, so I've clearly lost 8 somewhere, but I'm sure that's fine. I clearly miscounted. What I'm going to do before I get into the images, I'm going to show you the first shot and the last shot in the sequence. So if I open that, and this is where the session started off live. It's a nice, clean, representational shot, but it's not really what I was looking for when I started the session. I was looking for something a bit more arty. But this is a really good illustration of the difference between male ferns, which is what this is, and buckler ferns. These are the two main ferns that you see out in our woodlands. You see them really commonly across the whole of the UK. We've got the central rib here, and when we've got the little leaflets coming off at the side. Now, when you're looking at ferns, you ignore that central rib, and this is your first rib that you look at. Now, what you do is you count this rib being once, that little leaflet there being twice. Now that once is what they call pinnate. So that's once pinnate, and then the leaflet that comes off that is twice pinnate. Now if that leaflet was to divide again, which it doesn't, then it would belong to the buckler fern family. Because it's entire, it's the male fern family. That's how basically you tell the difference. But going back to the image, it's a nice clean image. It's quite strong, like I say, you got this strong diagonal and all these coming off it, which make for a reasonably nice image, but nothing too adventurous, let's say. So if we look quickly at the last image, now you can see it's not a great image, but you can see there's more artistic input. It's a little bit more interesting. It's going somewhere, and that's what I was trying during the session. And this is what I mean by taking quite a lot of images to arrive at a small selection that you like. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start at the first one. I'm going to nip into the develop module, press the L key for lights out, press it again so it goes really dark, and I'm going to quickly go through the whole 56 images. And this is the process I go through. I don't dwell too long on them. I go through them really quickly, and then after that I sort of get a response to the shots, and it's that response that makes me go back to those individual images. I don't flag them at this stage. I just like I say, I go through them very quickly to see if I get a response, or if I'm left completely cold. If I'm left completely cold, the whole session's been a waste of time, and I won't invest any more time in looking at those images. So let's start with the first one. We've already looked at that, and I'm going to set off now and go through the whole 56. I'm going to stay quiet and just give you time to look at them. I'm going to keep them on screen for probably no more than a couple of seconds, because that's what I do in real time. I will just say that Willow is on the windowsill. If a van comes, she's probably going to bark, so just be wary of that. I'm not going to cut it out. I want to do this exactly as I do in real life. So let's go. So that's the whole section. Was there any that jumped out at you? Obviously, there's going to be an element of processing to bring the best out of the ones that I like. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through them again and flag up the ones that I like. So I'll get back to you in just a second when I've flagged those images up. It'll be interesting to see for you at home whether the ones that I've flagged up are the ones that caught your eye too. Right, so I've gone through the images, and as luck would have it, I've settled on two. It's bizarre because I went through them first of all and I didn't like any, and I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I wasn't keen on any of them, so I took a little break and came back to them with fresh eyes. I mean, by break I mean literally 2 or 3 minutes just to walk around and then come back to them. And I've gone through them again, and there's definitely two keepers. So what I'm going to do quickly, just to give you an example of real time what I did, I'll just go quickly through them and I'll point out the bits immediately that the reasons why I didn't select a particular one and moved on to the next. Now there are some that are quite similar, so I'll just whiz past those, but I'll give you the reason that I rejected it based on the first one, because the ones that are similar are obviously similar, so there's no point in talking about those as well. So I'm going to ignore this one because, like I said, it's a bit straightforward, it's a bit representational, and it wasn't what I was after. So this one, nothing really to, I just put lights out, then we can see properly. This one, nothing really to rest the eye on. It was a bit neither here nor there really. Same for that one. That one, a little bit too obvious again, and not really sharp enough in my view, albeit I'm not necessarily looking for sharpness throughout, but because this one, it's neither sharp nor soft, and it's not really hitting any department at all in terms of whether it's something that appeals to me. That one again, a little bit too obvious. It's quite nice, and I do like the fact that we focus through vegetation to see a little bit of the scene, but there's no part of that sharp, and because it's really recognizable, some of it needs to be sharp at least for it to work. But I do like the vignetting on the top right and the bottom left. That's worked really quite well, and that's not been put in at post. These are the raw files you're looking at now. Same for that one, same for that one. That one a little bit too hot in places on the top parts of the fronds on the right hand side here. Yes, I could dial that down a little bit, but I'd rather get it as close as I can at the time of taking. So I rejected that. What I will just do is I'll put it on here and go through them, because I want to just see the ones that I've flagged as they're coming up. I quite like this when I was taking it, but on reflection now, this is what I was drawn to, and I did think just to crop some of this off, but these fronds along the bottom that are sharp, they're just not nice enough to look at. My initial thought was to make it into a a 2x1 or something like that, just have the bottoms of them, but yeah, it just doesn't work at all, although I do like this part of it. If you just quickly get rid of the bottom, there's something interesting going on there, but it's just a little bit too central with not a lot of information on the left and right, so I rejected that. Same again, similar idea, just didn't quite work. Nowhere for your eyes to rest on particularly. Another repetition. That's one that I cropped down just to see, like the one you've just seen. I'd already done that as I was looking through them before. I quite like that, but it didn't make the final cut. Another version of it there. Now what you've got here is you've got a picture of two halves, and there's literally nowhere for you to look at. You're going from one side to the next. Similar again, similar again. That one just too obvious. That one not really here nor there. This was one that I flagged, and it is reset to the raw file, so we'll work on that in just a second. No for that one. Again, nothing for you to really rest your eye on. Your eye is drawn to this, but it's just not sharp enough, and it's not soft enough to work. It's got to be one or the other, and certainly not somewhere in between the two. Same one, similar thing, similar thing. Yeah, nothing to that one at all really. I was playing around with this one into the light, but it just didn't work. You've got poor quality ends here to the fern, and the tip of this one isn't in great condition either. But yeah, it just doesn't work really. That is just literally nothing. I quite like that, but like the other one, it's all in the central portion, but if you just lighten it up, give it a bit of saturation boost, it is actually quite nice. Press the lights out, but yeah, it's just not quite strong enough. So I moved on. That's a similar thing, similar thing. I quite like this, and the one I've chosen isn't too dissimilar to that. Lots of variations of that, and then I went back to where I was. Now this is the one that I've flagged up, which I've got as a potential final image. I've got these two, the one you saw a second ago, and of course this one. No, a bit too obvious, a bit too obvious. Now I played around with this, it reminded me of an eye, and I really like this swirl going on, and the fact that you've got this swirl along the top. And there's something I like that. I love this feathering that you get on this left hand side. Just press lights out again. That is really nice effect, and the colours blend in so beautifully, but there's just nothing here for you to look at. And although it's got lots of other things going for it, that big expanse of nothing, that negative space there, negative space can not sometimes be a good thing, but in this instance it's just too much and it's not doing anything. Shame that, because I worked on that, as you can see, for quite some time with similar ideas on the theme, but in all it didn't really come off. And it was round about now when I was starting to get pins and needles, so I was at the point of giving up. Now I quite like that one, the last one. I still like it now I'm looking back at it, but I'm just not sure if it was presented in a frame, would it hold your gaze? Probably not. It's not hugely recognisable, and it's not arty enough to make you want to admire it for any length of time, I don't think. So let's go back to the two, and we'll have a quick process of those. So here are my two images. Let me just make sure that's reset. Yes, it is. So these are both as they came out of the camera, and I'll just do a quick process, and this is very often about as much as they get. So the first thing to notice on this one is it is quite dark, and I'm looking for something that's got a light and airy feel. So bringing that right up there, I love this. These have really come in now, they're quite interesting. And I love the softness all around them, and I do like this opposite fern coming in just to create that bit of contrast. Now as it stands, it's not bad at all, that, and I'd be happy where that is. You could say that the greens are a bit too green. Let's go to colour mixer and just have a quick play with the let's have a go with the luminance of the greens first of all. Yeah, I think just add a little bit of dropping the luminance down a touch just adds a bit of contrast. Will it benefit from less saturation? No, I think it needs the saturation in this instance. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the basic panel, and I'm just going to drop the highlights down a little bit. Now sometimes what I do is I will go to the blacks, hold the Alt key down and play around with the blacks just to see at the point they're not blocking out the shadows there, and see how that looks. But I do find sometimes it can add a bit too much contrast, and I'm not always looking for that in this sort of image. But yeah, I'll just open it up just a little bit. Whites, I've said before in other videos, I don't pay any attention to those, because if you was to set that where it's suggesting, it's just horrible. So I do the whites by eye, just bring a little bit of life back into it, touch of contrast, and just notch the saturation down a touch there. Sometimes I will look at the texture, clarity and dehaze, but this image has already got plenty of atmosphere within it, so I think that is where I'm at with that image. We'll just go for lights out, and I think I'm reasonably happy with that. Maybe just take the highlights just down a touch more, just to soften it all up. A little bit more contrast in. Yeah, I do like that. You've got this lovely repetition, this almost like ladderscape of fern fronds going up. But it wouldn't be anything without this little bit of extra just coming in from the right. That makes all the difference. It really does. So let's have a quick look at the other one. Do the same again. Now this one's quite complicated, let's say. It's quite chaotic. First thing it needs doing, definitely to my eye, is lightening up. Bring the highlights down a little bit. I'm not too fond of this bottom left hand light side, but I like it brighter in the background. Bring those highlights down just a bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a linear gradient, and I'm just going to bring that over this right hand side and just drop that exposure down just to balance everything off. That's definitely better. I will just try a radial gradient. Create new, a radial gradient. I'm just interested to see what this little area back here looks like. Invert the selection. Sorry, the other way around, of course. Let's just make that a little bit bigger. As I say, I'm doing this on the fly. I don't think that works. I think I much prefer the contrast that's happening in there, so I'm going to delete that mask. I prefer it as it is. I am just going to bring this in a little bit though. Yeah, there's much more attention in this central area now, here now, where the action is happening. Lift the shadows up just for that area just here. Let's have a quick look at the blacks again. That's the set point there. I actually quite like where it is. I'm just going to open it up just a little bit more. In terms of shadows, yeah, that's definitely where it needs to be. I'm not keen on this dark spot here, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little radial gradient just over that little bit there. And in terms of the shadow on that spot, just turn it around a little bit. I'm going to go into the colour, colour mixer, and take what bit of red and orange there is. So just let's just move that out of the way. That's definitely improved it. And I think that will do for that. That's definitely better. There's a little bit inside me now saying I want to lighten the whole image up just to give it impact. Let's go for lights out. Yeah, and I think that is where I want it to be. That's really quite nice. Now the question is, which of the two do I prefer? Now it's interesting because now I've looked at that, it's definitely too green. It needs some of the saturation taken out of it. Now I'm not sure which I prefer, so I'm going to complete both of these off and present them both at the end of the video. So both of them selected, edit in Photoshop, and you've seen me do this before many times, is I'm going to go to image size, 1080, because this is what I want to display on the video. 1080 pixels. We'll go to 100%. Nothing else to do on it. Really like that. Image, canvas size. I'm going to go to inches, and I'm going to put a 1 inch canvas round it. That's that one done. And do the same again. Image size, 1080. Okay, 100% so I can see it nice. Canvas size, inches, 1 inch, 1 inch. And there we have both images completed, ready for the end of the video. Now what I will say is that on this occasion there's been no sharpening of these images because clearly they both have no actual real sharp points to them, and that's not important. It's all about the artistic side of the shots, and certainly not representational images, and I think these would look lovely on any wall. So I'll put those 2 images on now, but before I do, I will say thank you all so much for watching. Leave some comments below, let me know what you think of today's video. If you're not already a subscriber, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a nice big thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. So until next time, I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.